and welcome to the Career Coven, the podcast for serious careers with unserious chat. I'm Beck, a coach, corporate citizen, and recovering perfectionist.
And I'm Annie, a workaholic, learning boundaries. And each episode, we unpack career challenges and workplace wisdom through honest conversations, practical tools, and a healthy dose of real talk. So you can thrive on your own terms. Let's get into today's episode, which is about one of my favorite topics, Beck, burnout. We've all been there. Have we not all been there? Have we all been there?
I think maybe we've all... I've been there and you've been there. I don't know if everyone's been there.
Do you actually know any women in particular that you would say haven't been there? That you were like, they've never been burnt out?
I think burnout is used as almost like a sort of throwaway, like I'm feeling so burnt out. Have I seen people have a full burnout mental breakdown? I'd say people I know intimately would disclose that to me, and probably everyone else hides it. That's what I would say.
That's sort of part of burnout. Maybe we should just get into it.
Let's get into it. Should we start just with a quick water cooler? What's going on in your life this week?
This week. Another day, another week. Yeah, I don't have much to say on my week. Like, to be honest, not much I can share on a podcast. I would say it's a mixed week. Am I feeling productive? Yes. Have I productively produced the outputs I would want for myself? No. Are there challenges at work? Always. But personally, things are really good and absolutely fine. So what about you? How's baby Robbie?
You've missed the most important one. Since we last recorded, we had your hen-do.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Honestly, the best day, like better than the wedding day. One of the best days of my life.
I think the best bit was your absolute surprise when we went to the painting place and Susan arrived and you took home 12 portraits of Susan.
I am actually going to put those portraits up tonight to give Anders a birthday surprise of a wall of Susan. That's what I'm going to do this evening. But yes, that was honestly, I haven't had a better day of my moment in my life than when she was led in her little veil. I was like, this is actually the best moment of maybe my entire life.
It was
so they did well. The planners did very, very well. It was a glorious day.
It was lovely. As you know, I am on week 5002 of mat leave. Since we last recorded, I've done some keep in touch days, which I really enjoyed, and trying to debate with my partner whether we buy a renovation project as our family home, which, as we've discussed, is sort of a psychotic thing to do with a newborn baby, but could be really fun.
I vote yes.
Good stuff. Okay, so today our topic is burnout. On the agenda, we have talking about its definition, what actually changes in your brain and can you fully recover from it, some gendered dimensions of burnout, recovery and prevention strategies, when burnout means it's time to leave, and sustainable work-life boundaries. I, full disclosure, have not had as much time to prepare for this episode, but I see that you have, Annie, so we will be learning a lot from you today.
Great. I mean, I am a burnout queen. I am a burnout expert. I personally consistently burnt out, and I really enjoyed learning more about it. I mean, I'm not consistently burnt out, but I'm a regular on the edge of burnout, I would say. And yeah, I enjoyed doing some research into, like, I think we use the word burnout to cover a lot of terms. It's become a very like colloquial like phrase that people use to like really just talk about a whole range of emotions. But when I was actually reading the definitions of what, you know, psychiatrists and psychologists define burnout as, I was like, yes, the time that I was truly burnt out, all of these things were so true. But do I feel like that these are true now? Luckily for me, no, I don't think I'm like fully burnt out now. I think I just like enjoy teetering on the edge throughout life of a complete mental breakdown.
Not today.
Yeah, not
Not
today.
today, but could be soon. Who knows? Could be right
soon.
around the corner.
I think most of the things I was reading talked about it being like both emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, being from like excessive stress. And obviously most people do talk about it, I think, in terms of work, like professional work. But there's obviously other types of work, caregiving, family pressures, and they sort of all come together to produce a state of burnout. So it is a mixture of like lots of different factors coming into it. But yeah, all of those certainly resonated with me.
And I noticed we had both taken the same note around this, particularly coming onto the gender dimension, that double shift is quite often a women in the workplace burnout, where you get home and you have your other mental load of other things. I was thinking about it. Like last night, I was trying to go to sleep in bed. And Tom's like, "Why aren't you going to sleep?" And I was like, "Because I'm thinking about different types of mattresses for Robin." And he's like, "Oh my God, stop your busy brain." And I was like,
Yeah.
someone's got to think about it. So
Yeah. And I can't, like, not being a parent myself, it's like I actually can't imagine that right now, because it's almost like when I had burnout, for me it was actually both a very tough personal situation and very tough professional situation combining for an extended period of time. I would say like 9 to 12 months of just undue agony in both dimensions. But I didn't have that, like, frankly, I wasn't caring for anyone else but me. It was just me trying to figure stuff out. So the extraordinary load of having tiny helpless infants or grown up not helpless children is like, yeah, it's almost too much to imagine from my perspective, having been burnt out. But I think it's also, you know, as you say, it's a common reason why women do experience burnout more than men. I mean, most of the literature I read, that was talked about as a fact, is that women do disproportionately get affected by burnout, and that dual care burden is a big part of that.
yes, I totally agree. Do you want to talk the listeners through your experience of burnout? How do you want to do this today?
I can. I mean, I can.
It's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, like for me, it wasn't just work. I think everyone that knows me knows that I have a sort of pathological approach to work, and that's not incredibly productive at all times. But it actually like was not just work. I think it was the fact that I really, in my home life and my work, I felt like I was kind of constantly fighting on like all fronts, and everything like day to day just felt totally relentless. Like I couldn't get away from it. And obviously I didn't just drop straight into burnout when things got bad. It was definitely like, oh, for the first like 3 to 6 months, I was like, whew, like this is a lot. Oh, I'm not having a nice time. But then it got to like, oh my God, you know, I wake up every day, I can't sleep properly, I can't get away from these feelings of like complete overwhelm. And then eventually, I think after probably, you know, 9 months of like very intense stress, maybe 9 to 12 months, like literally over a 2-week period, the thing that felt different to every other time that I've been like stressed or busy was like I suddenly lost like all my confidence in myself. Like literally it just fell off a cliff, and it was really difficult because that was during a time where I was fundraising, like a time where you actually need the most confidence in yourself professionally. And it wasn't because of the fundraising. It wasn't because I experienced anything bad. It was just suddenly it just happened. And I just didn't believe I could just do it anymore. And yeah, one of the psychologists I was reading about was like a professor called Laurie Santos, who said there's like 3 different phases of burnout. The first is emotional exhaustion, where you feel really worn out and drained, and like even a good night's sleep doesn't help. So I definitely had that for a while. The second phase is like depersonalization or cynicism. Like I know that one of the things when I'm like approaching burnout is that I start to not be able to connect with my friends, and I feel almost like I'm a third person watching a conversation rather than in the conversation myself. And like that is now a bit of a warning sign that I'm like, oh, it's more than just like being a bit tired. And then, yeah, the final feature is like this reduced sense of personal accomplishment. And you start to think like everything you're doing is ineffective. You can't do things. It doesn't matter. And I'd never had that before as someone with like really high agency. I'd never been like, whatever I do, I can't change this. I've never had that feeling. And it came on so suddenly. And honestly, it was then really, really fast. It's just like I hit like the big red button on my life, and I just stopped like everything within like a space of kind of 2 to 4 weeks. And so I think that I didn't know that there were like these defined 3 phases. But then when I was reading about it this week, I was like, whoa, that is like me through and through. That was exactly what I experienced. And, you know, I just felt, yeah, unrelenting exhaustion, completely detached. And ultimately, yeah, like I wasn't able to any longer achieve any of the goals I'd set for myself. So I might as well give up.
Rough.
But you know, here I am. Didn't give up. I'm absolutely fine.
That was one of the periods in your life, one of many, where I bought you the same book.
Yeah, well, you bought me that fucking book. Design your life.
It's really good.
And it is. And I'll design it one day.
But, you know, it's good to see you out the other side of that period, of course. There is some really interesting stuff on what happens to your brain and your body during burnout. I know we have mentioned this on the podcast before. Last time I mentioned it, I hadn't read the book. I have now read the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
And that is a pretty sort of damning report on the impact that prolonged stress and trauma has on the body and the brain. So what's going on physiologically in this period?
Yeah, that book. I found that book so depressing.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, I'm reading this retrospectively. I've had all of that. What do I do? Anyway, yeah, so I think they actually do think there are quite a lot of changes physiologically that happen to your brain during prolonged periods of stress. So one is that an area of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, the grey matter there thins. And what that can affect is your ability to like pay attention, be present, and like make and retain memories. So that's one thing that typically will get harder for you, but that's actually because there is a part of your brain that is thinning due to the impact of like stress. Another part of the brain that changes is the amygdala. And this is unsurprisingly the part of the brain that is responsible for your fight or flight response. And you're constantly in a state of obviously fight if you're really, really stressed for a long time. And that means you start to kind of feel like the world is against you, and it's really, really overwhelming. And yeah, you can start to see things as harmful and react to them as stresses, even when they're not. And I guess that could manifest in like a slight form of sort of like paranoia as well. And I certainly I certainly did start to feel like the world was against me for sure. Or more like I just couldn't catch a fucking break. Do you know what I mean? I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like this was in a book that I read ages ago from Alan de Botton, but it's basically like when you hear the sound of like a jackhammer on the street, it's like believing that noise is there specifically to annoy you. Rather than it just going off in the background, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst day ever because the jackhammer is literally in my brain. The memory thing is so interesting. It made me think about the work that I did during crisis response in COVID. And I can actually remember very little of that period of time at work. Like someone will mention something to me and I'll be like, I can literally don't even remember this whole part of work that I completed. For me, I think the bit that you said around sleep is a big flag for me. If I know that if I'm waking up in the night and struggling to go back to sleep, that for me is my first sign that like something has gone adrift in my brain. So you have obviously recovered from this big period of burnout. What did you do? How did you do that?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if I would say that I have like fully recovered. So it definitely is very clear in the literature that they think that your brain can recover. So yeah, like, you can do things that help reduce your stress levels, and doing that consistently for a prolonged period can help these brain changes like go back. So the brain is very plastic, and like it can change and respond throughout your life. To answer your specific question with me, well, I took like a long extended break to recover. And during that time, I did honestly just feel like I would never be the same again. And, it was very focused on like no work, went to Argentina, like tried to get out of, the COVID type environment, London, really changed basically everything in my life. I did, I guess, focus a bit on sleep, but to be honest, like the thing I changed that was most extreme was just I didn't work for a long time. And when I then came back to work, one thing I do think I did well, is that I worked part-time for 9 months. And that was really, really good for me because I was someone who'd struggled with boundaries, and it helped me, being a freelancer helped me like establish boundaries that meant that I could probably continue to recover after I'd got back to London, after I was like dipping my toe back into normal life, but like still have at least 2 days a week where I was like resting, not working, reading, like doing kind of slightly more chilled out things. But yeah, would I say I'm like an expert on the art of like burnout recovery? Absolutely not. Like, I didn't take a structured approach to recovering, and I have seen other people do that really, really effectively. It's like you start meditating, you do this with your diet, you are asleep by 10 every night for 6 months or something. Like, I think that can work for some people, and maybe it would work for me, but it's just not, I'm just not that disciplined. So I would say I took out what I perceived at that time to be the main stressor, that was work, and then I like gradually eased myself back into it, and I was like privileged that I could work in that way and like allow myself to recover. And then I got a coach for when I did go back into full-time work to help me adjust to that, and all of those things I think were like really integral to my recovery from burnout. But what I was reading that they recommend, if you are going to take a structured approach, is more like, obviously sleep is massive. You need more sleep if you want your brain to like, get back to normal. So like 8 to 9 hours, eating anti-inflammatory foods, like making sure you have a really healthy diet, making sure you get enough omega-3, which is really, really important for brain health, and magnesium as well. Mindfulness and breath work, like fuck me, I wish I could do breath work. I could like barely breathe. One of my colleagues once said I was like an epiglottal baby, which now you probably know is like babies breathe in a certain way because
I
they
didn't
don't
know this.
Yeah, apparently they don't have like their epiglottis, which is part of their breathing. I don't know. It's not developed, so they breathe like a little like like kind of, and that, apparently that's how I breathe, which I'm sure is not great. But obviously, like really stress management techniques are obviously really useful if you want your brain to recover. Exercise, I guess this is something that I definitely did do a lot of. And then you can do like trauma therapy, somatic therapy, different types of CBT. And the other thing which was really consistent, I don't know if it was consistent in everything you read, but it was definitely in mine, was like actually connecting with other people and making sure that you do creative and fun activities that are good for you and that like don't just involve kind of drinking, and that you like, as part of your recovery, deliberately connect with your social network so you don't feel isolated. So those are the things they recommend to like fully recover from burnout. I think burnout is different for everyone, and you need to do these things. You need to do the things that you can fit into your life. And so it's not just a like tick list of all of these things will help you. I think it has to be the things that kind of fit in with the lifestyle you have and the commitments you have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think like there's also, I think it's helpful for people to go a bit further than they would just organically, because they've organically got themselves into a position of burnout. And so, the point that you raise on drinking is really interesting, right? Like drinking like really seriously impacts your sleep, and then that will knock in. So whilst a lot of people have drinks to decompress, I am someone who does that. Having a whole bottle of wine before bed, probably not great. But yeah, I think also, like, before my period of burnout, which was nowhere near as bad as yours, but I wouldn't have naturally been like, I'm going to go exercise. I am a late bloomer to exercise, but actually now I just exercise basically for my head, and like my body comes along for the ride.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I wouldn't have done that, I don't think, unless I felt like I really needed to. And endorphins are great, it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really exercise for my body. I exercise for my brain.
Yeah. And I also think your point around connection is really important, and just like play more generally, and just fun, things that you do for joy.
Yeah.
When you're in this state, it's like quite easy to just deprioritize activities that feel joyful. And I know we've spoken on the podcast before about this, but just like having a list of things that that you enjoy in your iPhone notes, so that like you can just refer to without thinking about it and be like, and like for me, I really like going to a sound bath. Some people hate sound baths. I've made you come to a sound bath.
Fan. It was fine, but I'm not the biggest fan.
It's also like quite introducing people to sound baths is like a sort of make or break moment in friendships. And like one of my old bosses, I took her to a sound bath, and I didn't know that they were also going to be doing like bird noises and flapping feathers in there. And you're like, oh, this is much more woo-woo than I had intended it to be. But for me, I like sound bath is a better replacement of meditation, because I can't sit and meditate. I don't have the discipline.
No, me neither.
Or the patience for that. But a sound bath is basically sort of like a guided meditation, sort of like a nap, but like feels quite nice. So we've spoken about recovery. What about prevention? Like, has anything changed to help you prevent burnout now that you are sort of on the other side of the big period of burnout?
Might be a better one for you. No, no,
I can take it.
I am better at setting boundaries. I think setting boundaries is a big one, right? Like that's how you prevent yourself from being overcommitted and ultimately therefore very stressed. For me, that is something I constantly have to learn. I have still not mastered the art of boundaries. However, what I do think is, to your point about sleep, like I am now much more aware of the things that signal that it's maybe more than just like I'm a little bit tired this week. So I definitely am not like Little Miss Positive Polly by any stretch of the imagination.
Surely not.
What? But when I like lose the sense to have any of having any optimism, like particularly at work, it's like if I can't show optimism, that is a very bad sign. And I think like I noticed that recently, and I really had to like check myself and be like, okay, you need a couple of days off. You need to go for a long weekend or do something different, because you are now starting to just feel that everything here is negative. And I think it is, in that definition part, it is that a little bit feeling like, oh, everything is just really against me. Like, why can't I just fucking catch a break? So I think I'm better at spotting when I'm starting to get a bit negative and then taking more breaks and more rest. I'm maybe a bit more structured about my lifestyle, but not massively. But what I don't do is I don't really drink anywhere near as much as I used to. And I think that is part of, for me, like keeping my brain and my sleep like as regular as I can get it. Obviously, we did say at the start of this that we are on the back of my hen-do where I did vomit at the end of the night. So I'm
so
not
proud.
Yeah, it was absolutely disgusting amounts of tequila. So it's not like I'm a saint, but I don't drink on really weekdays very much at all. And yeah, I just try and limit alcohol as part of my burnout prevention.
Yeah. I think I think it's also just my relationship with alcohol really changed during and sort of post pandemic. Like, I feel like the hangovers hit worse, the anxiety hits double. It becomes much less worth it. I'm a member of the incredibly boring people club that wear an Oura ring.
Ah, yes. I wear a
And
hoop band.
yeah, you're in a you're in a more athletic boring club than me, I
No.
would say. I'm in the sleep boring club.
And I think Aura is a lot better for women. I think it's a lot more, they've got more women's health insights. I think Whoop is a bit like, meh.
I don't know. When I was pregnant, Ura was like, pregnancy insight, you're 8 months pregnant. No shit.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for this very important insight. But, one thing that we talk about, or have spoken about previously a while ago, was heart rate variability. And for the uninitiated, heart rate variability is a sort of like a KPI about
I actually can't believe you brought this up. I just have to say, like, I cannot believe you're putting this onto the podcast. It's fine. It's a real sensitive subject for me, but it's fine. It's fine. Keep going.
We don't have to share the numbers, but I think the conversation we'd had was along the lines of we both thought our HRV should be better because it is, as a metric, sort of your overall health and fitness, but it also factors in your stress. And you want a high HRV.
Yeah.
Both of ours are lower than we would like them to be, given how much we exercise. And what I found really interesting from my HRV is it absolutely tanked in pregnancy. And when I say tanked, my average HRV was like 10, which is like you're basically dead. And then it went back up once I'd had my baby. And really interestingly for me, my HRV is now higher as a baseline than it was pre-pregnancy whilst working. So the conclusion is, I think stress actually plays a really significant factor in that number. So
wait, say that again. It's actually better now than
my HRV is better post-birth on mat leave than it is pre-pregnancy at work. Therefore, work is bad for me.
Yeah, so I would also say, I don't want to talk about the numbers. It's a daily burden I live with, my heart rate variability. I almost can't finish a sentence to do with it. But let's just say it's low. It's low. And I know that it's work and stress because when I go on holiday, it literally over doubles during that week.
Wow.
So I literally know that my stress levels suppress my heart.
Breaks your heart. Oh.
Yeah, but look, there's a future state where that changes, I'm sure. Anyway, yes, you're right. It's I'm pleased for you that yours has improved post baby.
I'm sure it will like go through the floor when I start a house renovation and go back to work. But for now, stress levels are pretty good. I think the other thing that I would say about prevention from my perspective, I'm pretty sure I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but doing compressed hours really helps me. I have very poor discipline for not working really hard when I really am into the work that I'm doing. And actually what I was learning was that I was doing loads of hours Monday to Thursday. And I was like, well, my burnout prevention is that I just bank the Friday because I've done my hours. And if you're fortunate enough to work in a workplace that offers that and kind of respects that, I would definitely recommend that because it just means that I have a day to sort of gather myself and do my other things and recuperate and go to the gym and that kind of stuff. And that really, really works for me. Don't know how that will work when I go back to work with a baby, but I'll cross that bridge later. That is something I say is really good. Okay, let's talk about when burnout would mean that you should leave your job or not.
Oh, okay. Biggie, 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 biggie. The way I would approach it if one were burnt out and considering leaving their job would be like, if you think that your workplace won't allow, support, or reward you if you put in place better boundaries. So if you know that your workplace is somewhere that just rewards relentless work, responsiveness at all times, and like that's the measure of success culture wise, that is a big red flag. That's like a burnout culture, right? And maybe you'll be in a position to change it. Maybe you'll burn out trying. But I think that, like, depending on the size of the culture you're in, it's really, really hard if something is quite ingrained to change it at a pace that suits your own timelines, especially if you think you are burnt out or nearly burnt out. So if you don't think you're going to be able to establish better boundaries, or you think that you will literally get penalized for establishing them, I think that is like quite a bad sign. I also think if you just can't recover. So for me, I just wouldn't have been able to recover doing the job I was doing. There was just no question for me. And I don't regret that decision at all.
Yeah.
Like, what were you going to say?
I would offer another alternative to the listeners if they're not in that kind of, founder leader role, which is, taking mental health leave and being slightly more gentle or thoughtful about how you return and what you return to. Like maybe you return on reduced hours and you phase back in, or, I think if you feel committed to your organization, taking a break and coming back with those boundaries might be slightly easier than trying to put those boundaries in. And then, because like the hardest bit about boundaries is holding them up when you hit a bit of friction. Everyone tends to know what boundaries they want, but actually enforcing them is the more difficult part. And particularly when people are used to benefiting from you not having boundaries, meeting a boundary all of a sudden becomes a bit of a conflict you have to resolve constantly. So taking a break and coming back, I think, would be really good. Okay, I think we've also covered kind of sustainable work-life boundaries, but yeah, I would say boundaries is pretty key to making sure things are kind of proportionate to how you want them in your life and what you can cope with. Any final comments on the topic?
No, I mean, as you know, right? I could talk about it for days. I could talk about burnout for days, but I won't. I think that, ultimately stress, from a like science point of view, stress produces cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone. And like when you're producing cortisol, you produce cortisol over and above producing your other hormones. So you don't produce your estrogen, your progesterone, because your body is hardwired to produce cortisol over and above everything else to keep you safe, because it drives your fight or flight response. So I think it's hard to overstate how much stress for a very long time impacts women in particular and their health. And working in the area I do, as you reach like perimenopause, burnout and perimenopause and your hormones changing, they really collide into something that can be so difficult to identify what the fuck is happening to you. And I think that there's almost a culture in society now that women live on the edge of burnout because there are so many asks and stresses on women at all times. So I think what I would say is it's hard to overstate how much stress impacts women's health. And there is just no shame in it all being too much and you having to take a break or you having to step out. But it's genuinely really, really hard to identify the first time or any time that you are actually burnt out. So hopefully this conversation, for anyone listening, can help people reflect on whether they are burnt out or near burnout, or whether people around them might be experiencing burnout, and prompt you to check in with yourself or check in with other people that might be going through something. Because I think this is like a very, very, very big issue for society, but particularly for women. And so that's why I could talk about it forever.
Women tend to be more people pleasing. Women tend to be more perfectionist. Women tend to take on more of those things. They tend to be more empathetic. And, you know, the cost of those things is actually extremely high.
Yeah.
To be any of those, because you will always try and go above and beyond. So I think it's definitely one to watch out for. Too long didn't listen. Summary of the episode. Burnout is horrific. The impact of it is significant and physiological and social and emotional. And it's really about losing yourself and losing your confidence, and lots of good boundaries will help you on your journey back to good health. But stress is something that we live with all of our lives, including with our low heart rate variabilities. But I think the key takeaway is just not to underestimate the kind of physiological and long-term health impacts of burnout, and take a break. That's what I would say.
Amen. Okay, thanks for joining us today. As always, if something in today's episode has resonated with you, spread the magic, share it with a friend, post it on your socials, or leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. That's how the Coven grows. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.